Hello and welcome back to the What is K-pop podcast, where in which this is the third time I've tried to do an episode today. But when things just don't go well, they really don't go well. So, I have tried the Halloween Crush. I've tried Titanic. Now we're going to move on to Sewol. Try and talk about something to do with an event that I can also connect to K-pop, because I'm really trying here. Sorry about that. Titanic. One of the people who were on the ship, his great granddaughter is a musician, and another one is this is awful, by the way, and I really do not understand why I'm laughing, but also I'm just finding it horribly funny and a little bit tragic. Like you just joke and like laugh at something that really isn't funny. One of the other great granddaughter was the wife of Stockton Rush, who was on the Titan submersible, who was going down to the Titanic. I really shouldn't laugh, but when you just can't help but find something a little bit funny. It's just a little bit funny. Just like a tiny, tinsy bit funny. It really isn't that funny, but to be fair, I find things funny a lot of the time. Yeah. But I do not find this funny, the sinking of the MV Sewol. I don't know what MV stands for in terms of vessels. I know what RMS is. It doesn't want to tell me. What do ship codes mean? Also, okay, so SS is steamship or MV is motor vessel. Oh, sorry. So the RMS is the Royal Mail ship. So it's carrying our mail. I just bit my own lip. A tongue. Ow. I'm not having a good day. Can you tell? I'm really not having a good day. So, the MV Sewol. So, on the 16th of April 2014, the ferry MV Sewol sank while en route from Incheon towards Jeju City in South Korea. The 6,825-ton vessel sent a distress signal from about 2.7 kilometers, 1.7 miles, north of Byungpungdo at 2 minutes to 9 at South Korean time, or 2 minutes to midnight UTC on the 15th of April. And out of the 476 passengers and crew, 304 people died in the disaster, including about 250 students from Danwon High School in Ansan. And around 82% of Sewol's casualties were children. And out of the 172 survivors, more than half were rescued by fishing boats and other commercial vessels that arrived at the scene approximately 40 minutes before. So obviously, a number of events and like memorials and stuff like that have taken place, and there was a manhunt underway for the captain of it's awful. I have no idea why I'm laughing, but I also am like, I'm a laugher at crisis. This guy, let me tell you, that like I learned this, but the captain of the Titanic, he did not get off the ship at all. Like the representations of this man, like in the actual Titanic film from James Cameron, he did not get off the ship. He just went back into his ship's quarter, like his captain's quarters, and just let himself die with the ship. He did not get on a lifeboat. That the real life captain of the Titanic, no, he went down with his ship. You know what the captain of the Sewol did? He was pretty much the first person off that ship after like a few people, I think. Like he was one of the first people to get off that ship, and like I'm sure, I think from memory, he even said that the passengers on the ship that were like said to be on the ship had already gone. Like he claimed that he was one of the last when he was actually one of the first. It is so yeah. I feel a little bit of anger towards that man, you know. It is a horrible little thingy. So there had been at the there was a memorial wall near the Dam One High School where most of the victims were from, and a memorial ceremony in there was a memorial ceremony in Hwarang Public Garden near to the high school, and the Prime Minister at the time, Jung Hyung-won, accepted responsibility for the disaster and announced his resignation. And even North Korea sent their condolences. Oh, would you look at them? So yeah, a few. I think it's yellow ribbons, just like ribbon. I think just like ribbons in general are used a lot to like show support for this sort of stuff. I can tell you a little bit about what happened and how it happened, because I get to talk about fun things, and I enjoy this podcast because I get to talk about things that I genuinely want to talk about. Okay, how fun. Okay, so on the 16th of April, 3rd Mate Park, Han Kyul and helmsman Cho Jun-ki took over the watch from the previous team, and the Sewol was heading course of about 165 degrees at a speed of 20 knots and was operating 2 radar devices at the time. And at around 20 past 8 in the morning, when the ship was about 3 to 5 kilometers, so 2 to 3 nautical miles from entering the Maingyeol Channel, Park ordered Cho to change the steering system from autopilot to manual steering. And when Sewol arrived at the channel at 8:27 a.m. at a course of around 137 degrees, the wind speed was about 47 meters per second, and the wave height was 0.5 meters, with the visibility being very good. The Maingyeol Channel had strong currents, which necessitated extreme caution when steering a ship through it. However, at the time, the conditions were calm, and Sewol was following a route that had been frequently used. While the wider areas of the channel contain rock hazards and shallow waters, they were not in the immediate vicinity of the ship's usual path. And while prosecutors and some news stations labelled Park as being inexperienced based on her unfamiliarity with the channel, the Korean Maritime Safety Tribunal's investigation report noted that she had on multiple occasions passed through the channel on another ship, which, would mean it's good. You want to have someone who, does good. They did. It seems good. From my point of view. As Sewol approached what would be the bar turn, breakfast was being served in the cafeteria, and with CCTV data taken from 20 to 9 in the morning showed the students being present and socialising on the deck. And yeah, so right before the incident, Park and Cho were standing side by side near the ship's wheel at the bridge, and Captain Lee was absent from the bridge at this time. Brilliant. You really want your captain to not be around when you're making a turn like that. But I feel like he wouldn't have done shit for it. And And at 8:46 a.m., a Sewol was travelling at a speed of 18 knots at a course of around 156 degrees. Park ordered Cho to change course from 135 degrees to 140, which Choi consequently undertook. And accounts of what happened next are unfortunately conflicting, but Park's testimony claimed that she had used the radar to check that Sewol's course was changed and the new course was set to 140 degrees. She ordered Cho to change the course of the ship further to 145 degrees, and the order was given at 8:48 a.m. And after realizing the ship was heavily listing to starboard, which led the bow to turn to the right, she gave an order to turn the wheel to port. Immediately after giving the order, she heard Cho exclaim, "The wheel isn't working," in a flustered voice, after which the ship started listing. And Cho's testimony didn't differ too much. So the court came to the conclusion that Cho's steering led the ship to a 10 to 15-degree turn for about 40 seconds. The court concluded that Cho, who was flustered by the ship turning faster than expected while he was following Park's order to turn to 145 degrees, was attempting to turn to the left when he took Park's order to mean a turn in the opposite direction, which led him to make a turn to the right, causing the front of the ship to rapidly turn right. So, unfortunately, the Sewol. This is actually extremely annoying. But I was obviously mentioning this in the Titanic stuff. But what ships a lot of the time have is obviously limits on the amount of cargo that it can carry. It also has safety procedures to ensure that cargo can't move, as well as ballast water that helps it to be able to maintain levelness to it. So unfortunately, I'm just trying to get to the information. Yeah, so the Sewol at the time could carry 987 tons of cargo, so like cars and like I don't know, like shipping things that need to be taken. But she was actually carrying 2,146.7 tons of cargo, which obviously hadn't been secured, and only 761.2 tons of ballast water had been taken on board, but the ballast tanks had not been maintained as well, with the previous voyage being made without making further adjustments to the ballast water during its journey. So that again was not good. And it basically meant that all of the cargo and stuff, it went to the starboard side. Oh no. So after the cargo had been moving, the ship actually tilted another 10 degrees further than what it had done before, and showed sharply turned from 135 degrees to 150, which made Sewol begin to list towards the port and tilt towards the water. And so it went about 45 degrees to the right and then rotated for another 22 on the spot for about 20 seconds. And the cargo falling towards one side of the ship caused Sewol to lose all of her restoring force and allowed water to flow onto the ship through the side door of the cargo loading bay and the car entrance located towards the stern, which is, I guess, kind of like what happened with Titanic, in that the water started coming into the ship, and because like everything was on one side, nothing could like force it to correct itself because all of the weight was on, I believe, the right side. So as the ferry started to sink, the intercom system started ordering all passengers to stay put, alleging that moving would be dangerous, and that the announcements were made by a communication officer Kang Hye-sung, who had not consulted the manual before the broadcast, and that the announcements began at least 8:52 a.m. and continued even when the water began to flood the passenger compartments. And it said, "Do not move, just stay where you are. It's dangerous if you move, so just stay where you are." And the first emergency call was made by Chae Duk-hwa, a Damwon High School student aboard the ferry. And at 8:52 a.m., he called the National Emergency Service number and reported to the South Jeolla Province fire station that Sewol had begun to capsize. Choi was connected to Mokpo Coast Guard at 8:54 a.m. and was asked to give the latitude and longitude of the ship's location. So fast forward about to 9:35. I'm just like kind of saying points, and then like I'm not glossing over it. You can read it all if you want to, but I just want to give you the general overview of all the stuff that went on. So by about 9:30 at 9 in the morning, after confirming that all that nearby ships had been volunteering to help with the rescue mission, the VTS, I don't know what that stands for, told all ships to drop lifeboats for the passengers, and all communications were cut off between them and the Sewol. And about 100, and after that, about 150 to 160 passengers and crew jumped overboard. So that was who was getting rescued. Do you know what the captain and the crew were doing? They were drinking beer and communicating by telephone with staff to the Chong Hajin at 7 different times. And Captain Lee and his crew abandoned the ship. Yeah. So Captain Lee, Cho, and I assume Cho being that person. The first and second mates were the first people to be rescued, with Captain Lee being rescued about 9:46 a.m. So as the Sewol was capsizing, the announcements were stay put, even as the water came in, with most of the students obeying the announcements. But with some passengers, they did disobey it and climbed to the top of the ship or just jumped into the water and were able to be rescued. Video recording of the passengers during the capsizing had been recovered. I think it's awful, honestly. Like watching those, I'm just like, oh, I feel so bad for those kids, you know. Like, I know for me, I don't care kind of if the safety, like if announcements are saying to stay in your cabin because it's safer that if a ship I'm on is starting to capsize, I can guarantee that I would be getting out. But my feelings aren't the feelings of most people. Like, most people wouldn't want to disobey authority, but I've always consistently said this, but my safety instinct would always be to try and get out of the situation as fast as I can, you know. So I would most likely be one of the first passengers that aren't the crew to be getting out. So some would record the announcements telling passengers to stay in place and put on life jackets, while most were joking around, which, kids, they're going to joke about these sorts of things. They're going to be like, we're safe, we're safe. Some were putting on life jackets and saying farewells. They made phone calls, sent text messages, or sent account mobile messaging whilst the boat was capsizing, and the last message was sent at 10:17 a.m. Yeah, so the Sewol took 2.5 hours to sink. By around 11:18 a.m., the stern was submerged, with a section of the hull only about 2 meters high and 20 to 30 meters long above, showing above the water. And by 1:03 p.m., the ship was completely submerged. But yeah, no, like rescue efforts did take place, but obviously, unfortunately, people weren't gonna be able to be saved. Like, yeah, there were hopes that there would be air pockets, but no, unfortunately, there just wasn't in this case. And that kid that gave out the first distress call, he unfortunately went down with the ship. He wanted to give as much information to the authorities as possible, and who knows what could have happened if, like, for some reason rescue efforts weren't being made. Like, no one was going out to rescue these people, and if they could have, all those kids, like, not all of them, maybe not all of them, but a vast majority could have been saved. And who knows what could have happened. I might not have been sitting here talking about the fact that, like, the majority of those kids, they didn't get to, carry on and, like, be a part of they didn't get to live on with the rest of their life because of the silliness of the Sewol ferry stuff. Because if safety procedures were put in place, you know, Sewol wouldn't have been carrying so much stuff. If the captain and some of his crew weren't so selfish, a lot more of those kids could have been saved. If search efforts, or like, sorry, no, rescue efforts were able to be put in place, a lot of those kids could have been saved. Or if ferries didn't take people from Incheon to Jeju, it wouldn't have been a thing at all. But it happened, and we are learning from it, and I'd like to hope that things are better. Yeah. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon. Bye.